You ever have one of those moments where everything around you moves in slow motion, and you're the only one left standing in a crumbling building? That was me, standing in the sleek glass office I helped build from the ground up, hearing my wife's voice echo across the marble floor like a shotgun blast to the chest. "You're done here, Jake. We don't need lazy people like you," Emma said, arms folded, cold as steel. And standing next to her, grinning like she just won the lottery, was her sister, Madison, the new CEO and CFO of Griffin Ventures. A company I started. A company I bled for. A company I handed to her, to them, trusting my family would keep it safe. I didn't say a word. Just nodded, smiled politely, and walked out. I wasn't surprised. Deep down, I knew something was coming. Emma hadn't looked at me the same in months. That woman used to cling to me like gravity. Now, she acted like I was some pathetic house pet shedding on her designer rug. Still, I didn't expect her to stab me in the back on a Tuesday morning, in front of the entire board, like I was some Tim from accounting who forgot to CC someone on an email. The next morning, I was pouring myself a coffee in my garage gym, because apparently, I didn't have a damn office anymore, when I got a call from Emma's father, Mr. Dalton Carter. "Jake, what the hell is going on?" he barked through the phone. I told him calmly, "Your daughter's fired me." Said I was lazy. Silence. Then came the fury. Did they not read the damn contract? And just like that, I knew. I knew I had built a trap years ago, and they walked right into it. See, when I founded Griffin Ventures, I put a clause in the company charter. It stated that if I was ever removed without cause, I'd walk away with full voting control, a severance package the size of a small country's GDP, and most importantly, I'd retain ownership of all core patents and intellectual property. They didn't read the contract. Oh, but they would. And when they did, their smug little faces would melt faster than butter on a hot skillet. I waited. Not long. Just a few hours. That afternoon, Emma stormed into our house. Hair disheveled, makeup streaked, and eyes like daggers. "You set us up," she screamed. "No, sweetheart. I protected myself. You're the one who pulled the trigger." She tried to play the victim. Said I was distant. Said I didn't support her vision. Said she needed to take control of her destiny. Funny. Last week she was sitting on my lap in the hot tub talking about a second honeymoon in Bora Bora. Now, she was a monster in heels, drunk on power, and something else I hadn't seen before: guilt. I let her rant. Let her throw her wine glass. Let her tear her own narrative to shreds. Then I said, "Just admit it. It's not about the company. It's about the man you're warming up with after hours." Her lips parted, but she didn't deny it. Boom. There it was. Confirmation. No denial. No excuses. Just pure, freezing silence. You want to know how it feels when the woman you gave your life to, sold your soul for, betrays you? It's not rage. Not even sadness. It's numbness. Like someone flipped a switch and you're just watching your life on a broken screen, glitching and skipping frames. She walked out that night without another word. But I wasn't done. I pulled out the contract and sent a copy directly to the board, the legal team, the media, and, just for fun, her little visionary business partner, Cole Winters. Oh yeah, Cole. The fitness guru with zero business sense and a six-pack she couldn't resist. What she didn't know. I'd seen the emails. The texts. The hotel invoices billed under her sister's name. I had everything. This wasn't just betrayal. It was coordinated sabotage. And they thought I was lazy? They were about to see what a fully awake, fully focused, and fully vengeful Jake Carter looked like. Let the games begin. I waited exactly 2 days. Not because I wanted to, but because I knew Emma and Madison were the kind of reckless egomaniacs who'd try to cover their tracks before even understanding what they stepped into. By the time they realized the entire legal team had gone radio silent and the board wasn't replying to their emails, the panic started kicking in. And I could feel it from miles away. They thought I was finished. That firing me would be the cherry on top of their little power play. But they underestimated me. Emma always did. She thought being loud meant being right. Thought cold glares and tight dresses gave her power. What she didn't know, I had already bought out her co-founder's silent shares last year during a liquidity panic. I'd been prepping for this moment the way a soldier preps for a siege. Quiet. Calculated. Ruthless. And then it happened. Emma came back. But not like before. Not screaming. Not furious. This time she came in soft. Like a fox slinking back into the henhouse. She wore that same red blouse from our anniversary dinner 3 months ago, the one she swore was just too fancy to wear again. Her voice, syrupy and fake, echoed down the hallway of the home I still owned. Jake, can we talk? She asked, setting her purse down gently like we were in therapy. You mean before or after you fired me and let Cole tap dance through my office? Her jaw tightened. There it was. That flicker of guilt. That half-second micro-expression that betrayed the truth. I didn't plan for things to happen this way, she said. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. You planned enough to forge documents with Madison and move board votes behind my back. I was angry. You were always distracted. Distant. I laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah? Distant? Because I was running a company, building you your dream, working 16 hours a day while you were, what? Playing footsie with your Pilates instructor? She flinched. Gotcha. She sat down, crossed her legs, trying to look poised. I made a mistake. But maybe we can fix things. You want to fix things? She nodded. Okay. I pulled out the manila envelope. The one labeled confidential. The one with screenshots of her chats with Madison, Cole, even 2 other names I hadn't told her I knew yet. Men she met during girls' nights that lasted until sunrise. I slid the file across the table without a word. She didn't even open it. Her hand just hovered over it, then pulled back. I'm not here to be blackmailed. No, Emma, I said coldly. You're here because you just realized that you're not in control anymore. You're here because Daddy called you and told you about the clause. Because now you know the patents are mine, the core tech is mine, and your shiny new throne is built on my paperwork. Silence. She stood up, shaking. You'll regret this. Will I asked, standing too. Because I regret every second I didn't see through your lies. I regret every dollar I poured into your dreams. I regret not listening to the voice in my head the day you and Madison said you wanted to be equal partners. That was never the plan, was it? Her eyes darted away, and for the first time in years, she looked small. Then, as she walked toward the door, she turned and dropped the last grenade. Oh, and by the way, I'm pregnant. It's not yours. And just like that, the world stopped. She slammed the door and left me standing there, heart pounding, vision tunneling. I had no words, no breath, only silence. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was war. Would you like the revenge to escalate legally, publicly, or both in the next part? I didn't move for what felt like an hour. Just stood there, staring at the door she slammed behind her, as if my brain refused to process the last sentence she threw at me like a final, twisted gift. Pregnant. Not mine. That echo repeated over and over in my head like a taunt, bouncing off the walls of everything I once believed was solid. I wasn't just betrayed, I was humiliated, violated, publicly, privately, deeply. And the worst part? She wanted me to break. But instead of collapsing, I sat down, opened my laptop, and began pulling every string I had left. She thought she'd taken the company. She thought she'd taken my pride. Now I was going to take everything. I started with Cole, the pretty boy with motivational Instagram quotes and half a brain. What Emma didn't realize is that Cole had a criminal record from his early 20s, petty stuff, minor assault charges, unpaid taxes, even a fraudulent wellness brand that got shut down by the FTC, all buried beneath layers of PR and growth journey posts. I had the receipts. I packaged them neatly into a dossier and sent them anonymously to the press. Within 12 hours, every major outlet was covering it. The next morning, Cole's sponsors dropped him. His gym franchise pulled out. A pending book deal was canceled mid-negotiation. Emma tried calling me. 5 missed calls. I didn't pick up. Instead, I met with Mr. Carter. The old man sat across from me at his country club, sipping his bourbon with a look that said he was disappointed, but not in me. Madison came crying to me last night, he said, begging for damage control. Emma's a mess. The company's in chaos. I just stared out the window. Good. He sighed. You really don't want to fix this? She fired me, I said slowly. Told me I was lazy. Then she fired the man who built her empire and announced she's carrying another man's child. I want you to understand something, sir. I'm not just walking away. I'm tearing the roof off while I go. He smirked. That's the Jake I remember. And with that, he signed the document. A transfer of voting rights. Full support from the founding board. Madison had tried to override it, but it was too late. Their actions had triggered the clause. I was reinstated as primary shareholder and majority vote. By evening, I walked back into the same office Emma fired me in. Her seat was still warm. She was sitting there, frozen like a deer in headlights. Madison stood to the side, pale and shaking. What are you doing here? Emma asked, voice cracking. I tossed the signed board agreement on the table. You never read the contract, did you? She flipped through it. Her face changed from confused to terrified in seconds. We didn't think. No, Emma, you didn't. Madison grabbed her arm. What does this mean? It means you don't run Griffin Ventures anymore, I said. You don't run anything. You can't do this. I just did. And before they could say another word, the new head of legal, my guy, entered with security. Ladies, I'll need your badges. They screamed. Emma even cried. It wasn't pretty. She tried blaming Madison. Madison tried blaming her. Cole showed up at some point. Security escorted him off the property within minutes. The circus was in town, and I was the ringmaster now. They were out. And I wasn't satisfied yet. That night, I went home, poured myself a glass of whiskey, and opened a folder labeled Final Round. It wasn't enough to win. They needed to feel what I felt. They needed to break. I didn't sleep that night. Not a minute. I just sat there, lights off, one hand on the glass of whiskey and the other scrolling through months of betrayal, lies, and the twisted life Emma had been living behind my back. She didn't just cheat. She built a second life, a parallel universe where I didn't exist. And what made it worse? She built it using everything I gave her. My trust, my money, my company. I opened the folder labeled Final Round again. Inside were documents, screenshots, surveillance footage, everything. Some of it I'd gathered months ago when I first felt something was off. Others were recent, pulled by a private investigator after I caught her texting Cole under the name Candace at 2 a.m., claiming she was on a girl's trip. The PI didn't just follow her. He dug. He got into her email backups, pulled location data from her phone, and even tapped into her apartment's doorbell camera. Yes, the second apartment she claimed was a workspace for her startup. It was anything but a workspace. Cole wasn't the only one. There was a married client from Europe, a record label manager from LA, one of Madison's own exes. Each of them appeared in those security clips, one after another, entering that apartment like clockwork. And worst of all, they were laughing. About me. About how easy I was. How clueless. I watched 5 minutes before I had to shut the laptop. It felt like acid in my throat. That next morning, I sent the entire file, encrypted and clean, straight to Emma's father. No warning. No message. Just the truth. At 10 a.m., I got a text from him. I'm sorry. I had no idea. Do what you need to do. So I did. The first move was public. I released a company-wide statement welcoming myself back as CEO, citing contractual oversight and a realignment of leadership. No names. No blame. Just enough to get the attention of the media again. Emma tried to post something snarky on Instagram, some quote about rising from the ashes. She turned off the comments after 30 minutes. That's how long it took before people started posting screenshots of her with Cole, the accusations, and one video from a Vegas trip 2 years ago where she was clearly doing more than dancing in the VIP section. I didn't leak it. I didn't have to. The wolves were already hungry. But the real storm came at noon, when Emma showed up at my office again, this time without the lipstick, without the heels, wearing sunglasses indoors like she'd been crying for hours. She slammed the door shut behind her. Jake, you've made your point. I stood up. I'm just getting started. I lost everything. I lost my name, my credibility, my family's respect. No, Emma, you gave it away. Piece by piece. On your knees. In hotel rooms. In that apartment I paid for. She winced like I hit her with a brick. Do you even know if the baby is his? I asked coldly. I don't. She paused. Her hand moved to her stomach, just slightly. It doesn't matter. You wouldn't hurt an unborn child. I took a step forward. You really think I'd ever lay a hand on a child? I'm not you. But that doesn't mean I won't take you to court, strip you of alimony, and make sure you never see a sin of Griffin Ventures again. She tried tears. Real ones this time. Or close enough. Jake, please. I didn't love them. I was lost. You weren't lost. You were greedy. You wanted more. Always more. She broke down. Sat on the floor like a crumpled dress. Whispering apologies I didn't care to hear. For a moment, I felt something. Not pity. Not rage. Emptiness. Because the woman I married? She was long gone. This was just the shell. I turned around, walked past her, and called in security. Escort Mrs. Carter out. Permanently. And when the door closed behind her, I finally exhaled. Not because I was finished, but because now I was free. Let me know when to continue with the next part. The silence after she left was almost too loud. I stood by the window, looking out over the city, and for a moment, the weight of everything crashed down on me. Not just the betrayal, not just the lies, but the time, years of it, wasted on someone who looked me in the eyes every day and pretended to love me while building a separate life in the shadows. I should have seen it earlier. The way she stopped touching me unless there were people around. The fake smiles that never reached her eyes. How she used to ask about my day and then one day just didn't. I had excuses for all of it. Told myself she was tired, stressed, overwhelmed with work. I was so damn loyal it made me blind. But now, I wasn't blind anymore. I was wide awake. I sent my lawyer one final text that afternoon. Initiate divorce. No settlement offers. Go scorched earth. He replied instantly. Understood. The court case was going to be brutal. But I had everything. Every text. Every transfer of funds. Every recording. I wasn't leaving a single inch for her to spin the narrative. She and Madison went quiet for a few days after that. Cole, too. His gym closed temporarily, but everyone knew what that meant. Sponsors gone. Investors pulling out. Rumors of lawsuits circling like vultures. One evening, I got a call from Madison. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity made me listen. Her voice was trembling. Jake. I know I don't deserve you answering this. I didn't know Emma was doing all that. I thought it was just Cole. I'm sorry. I was stupid. I was jealous of everything you had and let her convince me you were the problem. She exhaled. I'm just calling to say I hope you burn the whole thing down. And if you want me to testify in court, I will. That caught me off guard. But I didn't call her back. Not yet. She made her bed next to Emma. Now she could lie in it. Then came the bombshell. 2 days later, TMZ leaked the surveillance footage from Emma's apartment. The one showing her drunk, stumbling into the elevator with Cole and another man, both shirtless, laughing. It went viral in minutes. The caption read, CEO's wild night raises more than eyebrows. Was this the final straw for Griffin founder Jake Carter? I didn't leak it, but someone did. Suddenly, she was toxic. Clients dropped out of contracts. Brand partnerships terminated overnight. And worst of all for her, Mr. Carter publicly released a statement condemning her actions and announcing a new trust structure for the family estate. She wasn't just fired from the company. She was cut off from her family legacy. I should have felt something. Maybe satisfaction. Vindication. Instead, I felt hollow. That night, I sat alone at the edge of the bed we used to share. The sheets still smelled like her perfume, faint and bitter. I'd been sleeping in the guest room, but for some reason, I wandered in there, just to see if anything still felt familiar. It didn't. I opened the drawer on her side of the bed and found a stack of Polaroids. Old ones. Us. From when we were still real. When she used to kiss my neck just because. When she'd sneak into my office just to sit on my lap and waste time. When she looked at me like I was the only man in the world. I stared at those photos until my eyes burned. And then I lit a match. Watched it all turn to ash in the bathroom sink. I didn't cry. But something inside me died quietly in that moment. The part of me that still loved her. The part that hoped. The part that waited for an explanation that would never come. The next morning, I woke up before the sun, like my body was too wired to rest. I went downstairs, brewed coffee, and stood in the kitchen staring at nothing while the world outside slowly turned orange. There was a calm in the silence now. No more games, no more fake smiles across the breakfast table. No more pretending everything was okay while my wife snuck out for her morning yoga sessions. I opened my phone, scrolled through the notifications, news outlets, lawyer updates, a few texts from people I hadn't heard from in years suddenly checking in. Funny how people crawl out of the woodwork when your life's on fire. But one message stopped me. It was from Cole. You got what you wanted. Hope you're happy. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I typed back. Not yet. But I'm getting there. He read it. Didn't reply. Coward. Later that day, my lawyer called with news. Emma's legal team was already begging for a settlement. The pressure was too much. Her reputation was shredded, her accounts frozen due to the trust clause, and with Madison flipping sides, she had no leverage left. They're offering to walk away quietly, he said. No claims. No alimony. You keep everything. I almost laughed. But then I said, decline. He paused. You sure? I want a trial. I want it on record. I want the world to hear it from a judge's mouth that she lied, cheated, stole, and destroyed herself. Got it, he said. Let's bury her. That same evening, I went to the office and found Madison waiting by the elevators. Her face was pale, no makeup, dressed in something you wouldn't expect from a woman who used to treat the lobby like a runway. I meant what I said, she said softly. I'll testify. Whatever you need. Why? I asked. You were part of it. I know, she said, eyes glossy. I thought she loved you. I didn't know half the things she was doing, and I didn't read the contract. I just followed her lead. I studied her face. I could see the regret, the cracks. Then say it in court. I will. She stepped closer. Jake, if I ever made you feel like I was against you personally. You were. I cut in. But now? Now you're useful. So show up. Tell the truth. Then disappear. Her mouth tightened. She nodded. I walked away. That weekend, I started boxing again. First time in years. Threw on gloves, stepped into the ring at an old underground gym I used to train at before success softened me. Every punch felt like therapy. Every hook, a release. I hit harder than I thought I could. All that rage. All that betrayal. It had to go somewhere. I wasn't going to carry her mistakes anymore. Then came the trial. The courtroom was cold. Wooden. Sterile. But the tension was fire. Emma sat across from me, her belly now showing slightly. She tried to wear white, maybe to look innocent. But the eyes of the jury didn't buy it. They'd seen the tapes. They'd read the statements. They'd heard Madison testify. When her father took the stand and publicly denounced her actions, you could hear a pin drop. Emma didn't even cry. She just looked vacant, like she'd accepted the fall. Or maybe she finally realized that this wasn't a nightmare, this was her life now. When the judge ruled in my favor, full control, full asset retention, and public record of marital misconduct, I didn't smile. I just nodded. It was done. After the ruling, as we were leaving the building, Emma caught up with me. Alone. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked lost. Jake, she said, do you ever wonder if we could have fixed it before all this? I looked her dead in the eyes. You killed it long before I ever picked up a shovel. She blinked. Winter slid down her cheek. I walked away. And this time, I didn't look back. A month passed. Not a word from her. The media storm faded, news scandals replaced ours, and the world moved on like it always does. But me? I was still sifting through the wreckage of a life I used to think was solid, trying to make sense of what was real and what was just a performance in expensive clothes. The house felt different. Lighter, somehow. I started sleeping in the master bedroom again. The smell of her perfume had finally faded. I replaced the sheets, repainted the walls, removed every framed photo where her smile looked too perfect to be honest. I wasn't rebuilding. I was reclaiming my name, my peace, my time. It's wild how betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it rearranges your entire reality. You question your instincts, your worth. You wonder how long they were lying while looking you in the eye. And the worst part? You start questioning every memory. Was that weekend getaway real? Was her laugh real? Was the way she used to trace her fingers down my back at night real? Or was I just a placeholder until someone more exciting came along? I was at the office late one night, reviewing acquisition proposals, when my assistant buzzed in and said someone was at reception asking to see me. It's her, she whispered, like saying the name out loud might curse the building. I didn't answer for a moment. Then I said, send her in. Emma walked in slowly. No makeup. Hoodie. Hair tied back. She looked like a ghost. And not because she was tired, because she finally saw herself without the illusion she worked so hard to maintain. She sat across from me like a stranger. I had the baby, she said quietly. I said nothing. It's a boy. Still nothing. I named him Caleb. You always liked that name. I raised an eyebrow. You mean the name I picked when we talked about kids 5 years ago? The name you laughed off because it sounded too biblical. She looked down. I'm not here to ask for anything, she said. I just wanted you to know. I leaned back, folded my arms. Does he know who the father is? Cole left before I gave birth, she said, eyes glassy. He wanted nothing to do with it once the cameras turned off and the money stopped flowing. Shocking. She smiled bitterly. You know what hurts the most? No. But I'm sure you'll tell me. I thought I was upgrading. I thought I deserved better. More excitement. More passion. I wanted the thrill back. And what did you get? She wiped under her eyes. Silence. A baby I can't afford. A sister who won't answer my calls. And a man I destroyed who's somehow standing taller than ever. For the first time, I let her see it, the coldness behind my eyes. I gave you loyalty. You turned it into leverage. I gave you my life, and you lit it on fire for some sweaty gym boy and a handful of compliments. She winced. I don't hate you, Emma, I said, but I will never forgive you. And I don't pity you. You built this coffin. Now sleep in it. She nodded slowly. I just wanted to say sorry, even if it's too late. I looked her dead in the eye. It is. She left without another word. And when the door closed behind her, I finally felt it. Closure. It didn't come with fireworks. No dramatic music. No final kiss or screaming match. Just peace. These days, I wake up early. I train. I work. I breathe. I smile. I go home to a house that's finally mine. Sometimes people ask me how I survived it. Here's what I tell them. Betrayal doesn't destroy you. It reveals who you really are beneath all the noise. You can either drown in what someone did to you, or use it as a ladder out of the hole they left you in. So here's my advice. Trust your gut. Protect your peace. And never let someone who couldn't even be honest in bed make you question your value. She fired me thinking I'd crumble. What she didn't know, I was just getting started. Spring came fast. The city warmed up, trees bloomed again, and life somehow moved forward. People smiled more, laughed, dated, married, divorced. Life never stopped for anyone, no matter how gutted they felt inside. But I wasn't gutted anymore. Not numb either. I was just awake. Fully. The man I used to be. The one who believed in forever, in building empires with your spouse, and dying old together on some porch somewhere. You died the moment she said, I'm pregnant. It's not yours. What rose in his place wasn't bitter. Just sharper. Less forgiving. More precise with where I gave my energy. I moved offices. Sold the house. Too many ghosts in those walls. Too many nights wondering if the woman sleeping beside me was dreaming of someone else. I bought a new place on the coast, open, clean, quiet. With nothing that reminded me of Emma. No faint perfumes. No shared drawers. No memory foam bed she used to sink into after her lies. One evening, a letter came. No return address. Just my name, written in her handwriting. I hesitated, fingers running across the edge of the envelope, debating whether to feed it straight to the shredder. But I opened it. Inside, no apology, no anger, just a photo of the baby. And on the back, one sentence written in shaky pen. He has your eyes. I stared at it for a long time, not because I believed her, but because a small, traitorous part of me wanted to. I folded the picture, put it back in the envelope, and tucked it in a drawer. Not to keep. Just not ready to throw away yet. Maybe one day I'll want to know who that kid is. Maybe I'll want to see if the eyes match mine, or just my nightmares. I never answered her. Never will. That door is closed. But I did start talking again. To people. To friends I pushed away during the chaos. To my brother, who I hadn't seen in years. Even started seeing someone new, not serious, just light. No lies. No pretending. No games. Just two people breathing in the same direction for once. She asked me once, over coffee, what happened with your ex? I didn't tell her the full story. Just said, she mistook loyalty for weakness. That was her last mistake. She nodded like she understood. And I think she did. Maybe that's why I kept seeing her. Weeks passed. Then one night, I stood on my balcony, wind brushing my face, watching the waves crash in rhythm. And I thought about how much had changed in so little time. How quickly your whole world can split at the seams, and still, somehow, you keep standing. And that's when it hit me. Emma didn't destroy me. She freed me. Because when someone walks out of your life, dragging your dignity behind them, and you still rise, you don't just survive. You evolve. I don't miss her. Not really. I miss who I thought she was. That's different. Love can blind you. But betrayal? Betrayal teaches you how to see in the dark. And once you learn how to see in the dark, you never fall for the shadows again. It was sometime around midnight when I got the call. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to answer. Maybe curiosity. Maybe instinct. Maybe just boredom. I picked up. Silence at first. Then a shaky breath. Jake. Her voice. Soft. Weak. Emma. I didn't ask how she got the number. I'd changed it months ago. But I figured someone somewhere cracked and gave it to her. I know I shouldn't be calling, she said, almost whispering. I don't know who else to talk to. I didn't say anything. Let the silence do the talking for me. I'm not okay, she said. The baby's colicky. I haven't slept in 3 nights. I'm behind on rent. I can't do this alone. I could almost hear her trying not to cry. And part of me, some stupid, deep-rooted, Old part, wanted to ask if she was safe, if the baby was okay, if she had food. But I stayed silent, because I remembered what she did, what she said, what she destroyed. You chose this, I said finally. You torched the life we built. I made mistakes. No, Emma, I cut her off. You made decisions, over and over again. And now the consequences are calling you back. She didn't respond for a moment. Just another shaky breath. I thought I could fix it. I thought maybe, if I asked for help, you'd. You fired me, I snapped. You humiliated me in front of the board. You climbed into bed with men who laughed at me behind my back. You made sure I had nothing left to come home to. And now you want help? The line went dead silent. I'm not asking for money, she finally said. I'm just scared. I took a deep breath. You burned down the house and now you're cold. That's not my problem anymore. I ended the call. And then I sat there, staring at the wall, my heart pounding like I'd just run 10 miles. I wanted to feel nothing, but I didn't. I felt free, because I didn't hang up with guilt or sadness. I didn't question myself or wonder if I was being too cruel. For the first time in a long time, I felt clean, like I'd finally washed the last of her poison off my skin. People think revenge is loud, explosive, dramatic, but real revenge? It's calm. It's silence. It's picking up the phone and hanging up without a flicker of doubt. A few days later, I got another letter. From Madison this time. She said Emma was moving in with their estranged aunt downstate. Said she finally admitted Cole was never coming back, and her circle of friends vanished as soon as the money and spotlight faded. She wanted me to know Emma was alone. I already knew, because that's what happens when the mask finally slips. When people see the truth behind the smiles and curated posts, they scatter. And the same crowd she betrayed me for? Gone. As for me, I kept building. Quietly. Powerfully. No flashy headlines. No revenge tours. Just results. One investor called it the most surgical comeback he'd ever seen. I didn't correct him. He was right. Because I wasn't driven by rage anymore. I was driven by clarity. The clarity that comes when you stop trying to fix people who were never broken, just rotten. When you stop romanticizing loyalty to someone who would have watched you drown if it meant they got more legroom. Emma didn't break me. She revealed me. And now? Now I'm untouchable. It's strange how endings never come with fireworks. They come with silence. With peace. With mornings where you wake up and don't think about them first. With nights where your chest doesn't feel like it's carrying 1,000 pounds of betrayal. They come with laughter, real laughter, that doesn't feel borrowed or forced. And eventually, they come with a moment like this one, when you realize you've healed and didn't even notice when it happened. I stood on that same balcony overlooking the coast, the one I bought to start fresh. The breeze was crisp, the sky painted in soft oranges and fading gold. In my hand was a glass of bourbon, and in my chest, finally, was stillness. No anger, no longing, just me. The man who survived the kind of betrayal that shatters some people permanently. The man who was called lazy by the same woman who built her whole image on my work. The man who was fired, cheated on, humiliated, and stood back up taller. I thought I loved her. But what I really loved was the illusion. And when that illusion cracked, it revealed who I really was beneath it all. Stronger, sharper, untouchable. I didn't need closure from her. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need her child to have my eyes to validate what we had. Because what we had, it died long before she ever admitted it. Now, people ask me sometimes, do you miss her? I smile. Politely. No, I say. I miss who I was before she made me doubt myself. But I wouldn't trade the man I am now to go back. Because now I know what loyalty means. Now I know that trust isn't about giving someone your heart. It's about making damn sure they've earned it first. And if you're reading this, if you've ever been betrayed, used, lied to by someone you would have bled for, let me tell you something. You're not broken. You're waking up. One day, you'll thank them. Not for what they gave you, but for showing you exactly what you never want again. I raise my glass to that. To the pain that taught me. To the fire that forged me. To the woman who thought she ended me. And to the man who rose from her ashes. That's the real ending. Not the fall, but the rise.